Welcome into I don't even know what episode this is, but it's a Source Say podcast. I am a Looney Tune right now, but it's your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network, sponsored as always by our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Just rolled in, like literally dropped my keys, plugged my laptop in from Starkville. It's been a long day. Stephen Peak, we got running on like 8 minutes of sleep or something. We were up way too late, got up way too early. I had radio early this morning, got in the car, drove all the way back from Starkville, and we're like finally ready to get the celebration rolling and keep this thing going. All time, unbelievable win. Just the excitement, the atmosphere, the build up, facing adversity coming off of a loss that we all kind of thought didn't need to take at that stage, taking the wins when you can get them, as we talked about on the last show, needing to steal one, didn't know if it was going to be in Starkville because Mississippi State is a very, very, very good basketball team, Sean. We saw them at their very, very best. Unfortunately, Kentucky, we saw them at their very best, and it was a beautiful performance, an all-timer, something about that damn building. Sean, you've been there with me for several of them, and we just keep leaving with just unbelievable performances. We've gotten the Dante Allen game, we've gotten the Reed Shepherd game, and here we are, the Jackson Robinson game, the one we've been waiting quite some time for. Sean, how the heck are you?
Fantastic, Jack Pilgrim. When we talked about avoiding 0-2 weeks in SEC play, and when we made like predictions a week ago, we flipped this, right? Like we were talking that this one was going to be the one that we maybe thought Kentucky would not get, and that Georgia on the road be the one that they would get. And if you ask me which one I'd rather have, it was this one, because I do think that Kentucky has beaten the four best teams on its schedule this season, where it has come up short in some other areas. But a great team win, great bounce back. I saw some grit and some determination, and that's what it takes in this league this year. Just, you can't be 0-2, 0-3 for stretches. If you are, you're putting yourself in position to be in the bottom half of this league and be in a danger zone. But Kentucky, look, Jack, now 4 of the best wins in college basketball, but those others were on neutral floors and at Rupp Arena. This one matters because you don't have to win true road games in March, but the best teams that go on runs in March check those boxes at different points throughout the season. This was Kentucky's first box to check in that category. I think that's the big part about it.
Every single box that we were looking for to be checked, responding to a win. Could they get the bounce back? 2-0 following losses this season. Could they get a third while also getting the first true road win? Mark Pope getting, needing win 200. Jackson Robinson kind of going through his rut. Responding to adversity, responding to physicality and rebounding struggles and slow starts, and like every little nitpicky thing, dealing with injury, and Andrew Carr dealing with his thing. It just felt like everything about this game, in the build-up and the suspense and the we got down 7. We've been in Starkville for 72 hours, bro. Like, I have seen more Starkville than anybody should ever need, but Steve and I, we really enjoyed our time when we were down there, but we got to get the kind of the pulse of the fan base. It was really cool to get the build up with so that their spring semester does not start till Wednesday. So you got kind of the flow of students coming back in this weekend, specifically for this game. We interviewed a bunch before the game started, several hours leading up to it. Some starting their camp out at midnight the night before, and kind of saying like, "Hey, we don't have to be back till Wednesday for our first day of classes, and we're coming back. So we're coming back to town specifically for this game because of how big it was." And you just got the big game feel. We talked about how it felt like a heavyweight clash when Florida came to town, and you got the best version of Rupp Arena, and you got two just of the best in the SEC playing at their best. But you kind of had the home side of that. You got to see the, BBN kind of will Kentucky to victory and push them over the finish line. Now we had to get the flip side of that. We had to see a rowdy crowd at its best, rooting actively against it. And Steven was there. Like, they were vicious. Like, they were cursing, vulgar, and like in a good rivalry kind of vibe. Not like, mean spirited, but like it just felt like a good SEC battle on the road. And for Kentucky to give us that gift of a performance with especially Jackson Robinson after overcoming what he's been through and trying to figure himself out and what that role looks like and what hey, I'm supposed to be the star of this team and I just haven't been that yet for a full 40 minutes for a complete 2-half game. What does that look like? How will we ever get that? We had 2 days before the game, Mark Pope in his call-in show, fans saying, hey, why don't you put Kobe Brea in the starting lineup and move Jackson to the bench? We had the full conversation. We looked like idiots on that last show saying something's got to change. We can't just keep rolling Jackson out there and expecting him to magically go out there and go to – and Jackson's like, yeah, shut up, morons. That's why you guys are on YouTube right now instead of actually playing in the game. So thank you for shutting us up, Jackson. But thank you, Jackson, for giving us that performance because it was an all-timer. I have not had more fun. I hated I hated every second of watching that Georgia game. It more than made up for it with the flip side of it. I haven't had that much fun watching a basketball game in a really, really long time.
Yeah, and you got to have the ability to bounce back, right, throughout a long season. And I thought Kentucky as a team showed the ability to bounce back and go 2 straight road trips, 2 tough road crowds, and got a really important win. But Jackson, to me, and you and I were looking at his stats from last season this week, and we didn't really dive into it much on the show, but we were talking about the highs and the lows that he had, and he hit a step-in transition 3 in the first half, and that's when I saw him be really dialed in because he had that look on his face like he was having fun. He's like, all right, I'm feeling myself now. And you saw them going to the timeout, and he just had a different look in his eyes. He hit big ones early to create a gap and separation in the second half that Kentucky ultimately needed, along with some other things that we'll get into that kind of led. That's where I thought this Kentucky put itself in position to win the game, was the close of the first, opening of the second, where they kind of dodged some momentum shifting plays by Mississippi State and kind of matched it themselves. But Jackson was a big reason why. Now, Jackson individually with those 7 made threes, we have now seen in the last 3 weeks, Jackson Robinson go for a high number of threes. We've seen Kobe Brea just a week ago against Florida make 7. We saw Lamont Butler go, 6 of 6 in a game against Louisville from 3. That's 3 different guys that have gotten to that 6+ made threes in a game number. That's hard to game plan for. And I think that when you're looking at this Kentucky team, you want to be physical with them, but a lot of it hinges on, can you disrupt their rhythm offensively? I just think they're a hard team to prepare for because there's just so many different guys that can kind of go for you. Andrew Carr, we didn't know if he was going to play, and he had some big, 3-point plays that I thought kind of bridged some momentum swinging gaps. Every time Mississippi State would get somewhere, Kentucky made a play. But, man, Jackson Robinson, tremendous. And now it's about consistently doing that. Now, not consistently going 7 of 10 from 3, and he hits the big shot late in the game too. Like we've seen him do that a couple of times. That was the biggest one.
Just for a minute on Jackson, because that's, when you're in Mark Pope's shoes and you clearly have a guy that you've invested, financially, we saw, I thought it was really just kind of interesting to get a peek into the new just level of accountability in today's college basketball world with Rick Barnes kind of calling out Chaz Lanier and saying, hey, we're paying you a substantial amount of money to be something that you weren't for us today. He's been tremendous this season. Worth every penny and then some for Tennessee. Just he's a really 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 good get for Tennessee and going to continue to be a good player. But we saw that level of accountability, and it is kind of a touchy thing when you now have to factor in that these guys are they're not just there for room and board anymore. Like these are glorified employees now of the basketball program and all sports. So it does when you're in Mark Pope's shoes and you're trying to like you know that you've invested so much in this guy to be your guy, to be the guy that it was him, like it was him in Provo emerging as Big 12 six man of the year, kind of a star in a really, really good league, and you kind of bring him as his this is my gift, like this is the present that I'm bringing with me to BBN, ready to unleash him to the fan base, and to not have that kind of like, this is why I brought him with me. We haven't gotten that moment with him. Second half Gonzaga the closest, but we haven't seen his first full complete game. And the transparency with Mark Pope admitting after the game that like Jackson's been really struggling, and even had to have a heart-to-heart with his coach and say like, hey, my mind has just not been where it needs to be in terms of, yes, I am playing for my draft stock right now. Like the kind of the personal accountability to say, hey, I have been distracted mentally for the wrong reasons, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to get back on track where I need to be, and just kind of playing free, playing loose, letting go from the weight of the world on his shoulders, saying, hey, you come to Kentucky, but you could have been a second round draft pick had he stayed in. You go to Kentucky to jump into the first round. You're not that. You're not, those things that you hear, the outside noise and the speculation, like hey, you're not the guy that, we thought you were. You put all of that on your shoulders and just go, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. That's a lot. Like that's a lot to put on somebody. And for Mark Pope, it kind of came across as coach speaky for him to say, I've seen him show up in the biggest of environments. I ain't going to give up on him yet. And you don't want to hear that coming off a loss, arguably his worst performance at Georgia. You don't want to hear that, but it's not for us to hear. It's not directed toward us. It's that unwavering, undying belief in his guy to step up at some point. The breakthrough was going to come. And for Jackson to take all of that, all of the ridiculous weight that's been on his shoulder, to take all of that and turn it into what we got to see, the immediate breakthrough after what I thought was his worst performance as a Wildcat into his best performance of his entire basketball career. That's what this is about. And Mark Pope kind of just saying like, hey, this is why I coach. Like things like this is why I do what I do, so I can get beautiful coaching moments on the biggest stage with Kentucky across my chest now. Like that's why I did this. So I'm to say I'm proud of Jackson for overcoming. It's like when Justin Edwards last year was going through his stuff, and you've seen Nick Richards, kind of his slow progression, and just seeing a guy who had no confidence as a freshman become an all SEC talent as a junior. That's what makes this job good. That's what makes this job enjoyable, and the reward that comes with that. So to be able to be in the building when Jackson did that, it is something that I'll remember for a really, really long time. And I'm just proud of him. Like I'll just be totally honest. 27 points, 9 of 12 shooting, 7 of 10. He was brilliant. He was totally brilliant. He was engaged. He played with a happiness and a joy and love for the game that we have not seen him yet. And I think that was even cooler than the makes. Like just seeing him happy and enjoy himself and have a love for the game again was a very, very cool thing. And I've never been happier to admit that I was wrong, that Pope knows his guys. And if that's what it took to just finally keep chipping and knowing that there was going to be that reward at the other side, I trust him. He earned a lot of respect from me for how he handled the Jackson, kind of lows to get to the high.
Yeah, for sure. And credit to his teammates as well for finding him. Like, Kentucky was doing a really good job early second half, running some triples for him and some away action, some staggers. He made a really good read and kind of had like a flare there to where he hit one right in front of the Kentucky bench, and then you see the entire bench erupt. And Jackson has that joy on his face that he just has to keep his confidence in his shot. Like, you need Jackson Robinson taking shots. He made a deep one early in the second half. And like I said, the one that he hit stepping in transition in the first, the deep one early in the second, those are I'm in my zone tonight shots. And his performance was needed. Just like you had Lamont's performance against Louisville, you had Kobe Bryant's performance against Florida. You're starting to stack performances now from different guys at different points. It was Andrew Carr that closed out Duke. Andrew Carr made plays against Gonzaga. Jackson Robinson made plays against Gonzaga. You're having multiple guys make plays to win games for Kentucky against really good opponents. Like Jack, that's a hard thing to game plan for. And I know we'll get into the offensive and defensive efficiency numbers and where Kentucky's at. And, I said this, I believe if it wasn't on the last episode, it was after Florida, that I was paying more attention to results and wins and losses than I was getting caught up in KenPom and getting caught up in those defensive efficiency numbers and not being where you kind of want them to be. This team has continued to show us when the lights are the brightest and they play really good opponents, I feel like they have beaten the best teams on their schedule. Now, Georgia, you may look up and Georgia be a top 25 team. But
tomorrow, maybe.
But overall, what you've seen is this was a game that I don't think a lot of people circled as Kentucky having a chance to go win it, even though they had beaten Florida, Duke, Gonzaga. Not many people around the country were picking Kentucky to go into that environment last night, and that was probably one of the better environments that you've seen in that building, and you've seen a lot of them. But you said it, the weight of what the hell is going on. Why can't we beat Kentucky in this building?
I can't believe it.
I mean, we have seen some really wild moments. The Dante Allen game was if you can't beat Kentucky in your own building that year, then are you ever going to beat them in the regular season? Like this is kind of an unbelievable streak that Kentucky's pieced together because they've played so many games down there. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and that group in 2012 had to claw back. Like I've seen it over and over again. Kentucky have to fight back or be in close games, and they find a way to win in that building. And then
7 overtime periods.
Either.
7 overtime periods in that 18-0 regular season winning streak, and then you get 19. It did just feel like everything was working against Kentucky. With, like I said, what do you do with Jackson? How do you respond with Andrew out? Front court issues, rebounding, toughness, slow starts, every little thing that we have kind of been concerned about. Even I hated it in the moment because it was scary as all get out. But even when you get up 14 and you end up trailing by 2 in a matter of minutes, there was even kind of like the response from that to close down the stretch. I hated it in the moment, but to know back in hindsight, being able to look at that in the rearview mirror, I appreciate that. They got rewarded with a really strong start. They answered the bell with physicality. They rebounded hard. They played with an energy that I just haven't seen with this group. Got off, get the big shot with Lamont Butler at the end of the first half, rolls right into a strong second half where Jackson starts going nuclear. And you're like, whoa, we haven't seen this team just kind of the snowball rolling down the hill. And then it was like the basketball gods like, okay, let's see how they handle this one. And it's like, let's have the crowd go nuclear. Let's have Mississippi State hit a massive 6-0 swing, with a weird offensive foul on a 3 that leads to a corner pocket 3, that, that 6-point swing that just really kind of goes like, whoa, this got out of hand quick. Mark Pope not calling a timeout when you kind of see things unraveling, him trusting his guys. I liked seeing them in that panicked environment to see just what happens. How do they respond to this type of adversity? And to get them to panic, to get them going away from what worked in the first half with the physicality and responding on the glass. You have a stretch where just everything that was going well for them on the glass, they threw it all in the dumpster, missing rebounds, getting the ball ripped from them. The toughness wasn't there. You saw them kind of revert back to that, what we hate about this team at times, and then regroup and just kind of hit that, okay, whoa, let's take a second and pause and let's go win this basketball game. That was a really cool response that we got to see, and having it be Ainsley Almonor. Man, like how cool for a guy that came in here, and we talked from the day he signed here that he knew that he was signing up for a role that would lead to very few minutes, very few shot opportunities, and just you're a spark. You are not going to be anchoring this team in any which way this season, and you have to know that when you sign up. You are the last scholarship piece added to the puzzle, not named Jackson Robinson. How do you is that cool with you? And for him to take that and go, I'm at Kentucky, bro. Of course that's cool with me. And Mark Pope calling his shot. I'm going to give you a second to, do a little bit of this because you deserve it. Mark Pope said that Jackson Robinson or that Ainsley Almonor would win a game or two for Kentucky this season. And for him being with Kentucky, that panic, that like, who's going to be the guy? And Ainsley did be like, y'all don't want to take it? All right, I got this. Bang, bang, bang. 3 threes, 2 minutes plus ball game. Just the response that was a really, really cool individual effort for him. And I'm glad that Pope kind of said in the world of NIL, in the world of, how much money is, he's like, that is proof right there that, you can be 100-time over billionaire and you will never be able to take that experience away from him. No, that stretch of play is worth more than any dollar figure you could possibly throw at him. He will have that for the rest of his life, that 2-minute stretch where he was the god of Starkville. Like, that is a really cool thing for him too. And you called your shot. You said it from day one that when he signed with Kentucky that he was going to be an absolute game changer in spurts at some point. Didn't know when it was going to be, but it finally came, and he definitely deserves his props.
There's so much value in having a guy that deep in the roster and in the rotation that understands his role and knew what his role was from the moment he was being recruited. And, I've obviously not had these conversations with Mark Pope, but I've said multiple times that he will win them a game or two in the league, or at some point he's going to win them a game with just coming off the bench and giving a key stretch of minutes, and he's going to knock down some shots. And did I see him hitting 3 in like a spurt like that? Probably not. But when the first one went in, I was like, okay, this may be the moment, because they needed him to stretch a few minutes there. And when he's on the floor, you're shooting it well at multiple spots. You got Jackson Robinson, who's putting a ton of pressure on you. You've got to worry about Lamont Butler getting downhill, Otega Owe. That's the guy that maybe gets loose on you a little because he's probably not as high up on the scouting report. So next thing you know, there's 9 critical points that Kentucky needed from him in a stretch that helped Kentucky leave Starkville with the win. And how about after the game when he's got the newspaper clipping? Like, that's really cool, to see Ainsley, feeling himself and having confidence in that moment as well. But this is a Kentucky team that has a number of ways it can beat you and a number of different guys that can kind of do it in those individual moments. As big as Jackson Robinson was last night, that 9-point stretch from Ainsley Almonor does not, if it's not there, Kentucky, we're having a completely different conversation right now about Jackson's 27. If you don't have Lamont Butler's plays, probably one of the biggest of the game was late when he gets downhill and gets into that little floater. Huge bucket for Kentucky. The shot before the half. So just talking about individual moments, that run that Kentucky had to close the first, to open the second, was the separator. That was kind of the buffer between Mississippi State's run not burying Kentucky there in the second half. Mississippi State goes on, gets a 4-point play. Kentucky has the possession arrow, Jack, to start the second half. It's situational basketball. Lamont Butler throws in a 3, and then they open the second half with a Jackson Robinson 3, and Otega Owe dunk, and you got a run right there. That's an 8-0 run to answer a 4-point play. That 4-point play could have kind of sent the wheels spinning a little bit for you, just like the 6-point possession could have done the same thing. They were able to have the resolve within themselves to not let those two things bury them. Instead, they answered with runs of their own. To me, that is the staple of a really good team. because there were momentum swinging moments for Mississippi State that could have really flipped this thing, and Kentucky decided to not let it happen. Ainsley was a massive reason why, though, because he had his own individual moment that really kind of dropped and put the nail in the coffin for Mississippi State. Like that gave Kentucky the push to close it, and just a massive thing from a guy that's viewed as maybe eighth, ninth man, on this team. But hey, when you got guy number 9 knows his role and he's bought into it, not all teams across the country's ninth man is bought in. A lot of times the ninth man probably thinks they need to be the third or fourth man. I think Ainsley knows he's number 8, 9 at times, but he's willing to go in the game and know, like, hey, I can contribute because I can make shots and I can rebound.
And it's hard to put into words what that environment was like and the atmosphere. And as I'm sitting there experiencing it in real time, I don't think there's a chance that Kentucky, once the rope is kind of going like whoa 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 whoa, I did not. It had that vibe of, man, this place is rocking. It had so. I remember the feeling I had at Clemson, and kind of feeling like, man, these guys kind of feel like frauds. Like the crowd just kind of feels like an artificial excitement where it's a football school and it's like, yay, sports, Kentucky's in town. Let's pretend to give a damn for 2 hours watching the sports ball. Like, it was an excitement, but it was like, let's just pretend to care. And that's why that performance kind of pissed me off a little bit, because I was like, man, I don't think the crowd was that good. Like it was they popped, but it was like there wasn't the intensity, there wasn't the passion. And Steven can vouch for this. The passion in the hump felt real. It felt like, whoa, man, they're looking for any excuse to cave this roof in. Man, it's going to be tough to pull ourselves out of this. Like, it just did. When the momentum started slipping, it was like, oh boy, the crowd has been waiting for this, and it's done. Like, the snowball's rolling down the hill, man. I don't know how you stop this. And that's what made the resolve so cool, because me sitting there amongst the fans, like, it's the way you've been there, Shawn, the way it's so vertical, it kind of feels like it's just kind of everybody's on top of one another. So when you're sitting within the fans, you hear every word, you hear every chant, the momentum and the noise, and it was overpowering. It had that feeling. I was like, I couldn't imagine. Me sitting here just alone on press row, I couldn't imagine what it felt like actually being on the floor where it's surrounding you, surround sound of chaos. And that's what made, like, that stretch after that, with Ainsley stepping up and Jackson stepping up and hitting that massive step in, long two, and Lamont hitting that, from my angle, it just kind of looked like kind of got the spin and finished like a finger roll, a 2-foot finger roll. You watch it on replay after rewatching the game. That was a tough SOB shot. Like, I can't believe, like, just how easy he made that look, and just the resolve, the response, and just how they kept punching and punching and punching when the momentum was just gone. I mean, totally flipped the other direction. And credit Mississippi State, because that is an unbelievable Mississippi State team. Like, I came away, they're well coached. They have unbelievable talent. Thank God Josh Hubbard missed some of those shots that he took in the second half. That those minutes that you were able to steal with him sitting with 4 fouls, where he wasn't able to kind of keep that momentum rolling and him feel hot individually, being able to just kind of take him out of his game, force ridiculously tough shots for him with Lamont Butler stepping up defensively. That was just that's championship mindset stuff at the end. I mean, when we talk about the championship chest and, like, just having that Final Four level feel, that was an Elite Eight game that Kentucky won without the neutral site fan difference. That was winning an Elite Eight game in a true road environment. That was a really, really tough win to go steal. And exactly how you want to see them respond after whatever that was down in Athens a couple days before.
And some people may disagree. I just feel like this is a very difficult team to prepare for because it's not as easy as what you think to disrupt Kentucky offensively. Like if Kentucky's making shots, like we've now seen, Florida come in here and play an incredible game against Kentucky, and Kentucky had enough. Mississippi State got to 90, and Kentucky still made shots and plays down the stretch to close it. Like the pace, I knew Kentucky was going to win the game as we were getting closer to the half. I said, man, they're really establishing this thing, getting to the upper 80s or 90s here. And I just trust Kentucky to make shots down the stretch to have enough where I was unsure that Mississippi State wasn't as comfortable being in that type of game. Georgia, on the other hand, Kentucky couldn't really get anything going. They didn't shoot it as well. The physicality and the lack thereof that Kentucky didn't match. Some whistles at some timely moments. Like those things kind of all impacted Kentucky. But I thought Kentucky established who it was. But how about this balance? It's so much balance. Like how many games now are we going to see 6 guys getting to double figures? Like we've talked about this multiple times. Now, it's not just the balance in scoring. We've talked about the balance from 3. Like even though you had Jackson make 7, we talked about this when Kobe hit 7 against Florida. You also had 6 other guys make a 3, 7 total. You had 8 guys make a 3 in the game against Brown, but Ansley hits 3. Like there's just so much balance. Go down the boards list. Andrew Carr with 6 rebounds. Amari Williams with 12. Otega Oweh with 8. You had Brandon Garrison with 3. Kobe Bray with 3. Jackson Robinson with 3. Like there's balance across that. Assist. Amari Williams with 6. Lamont Butler with 8. Like there's so much balance across Kentucky's roster. And I know Amari, he will frustrate you at times because his highs and his lows are just so significant on the ends that they're on. But I thought last night when you look at his overall stat line, you look up and he's got 10 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. I know he did have 5 turnovers, but gosh, Jack, he impacted winning and he defended his tail off late. Like pretty good night. I know he was responsible for 5 of the 13, but just watching what this team does and how you're getting to a point now that they are so comfortable flowing into their zoom action that when the ball gets into that delay offense in transition, they're flowing right into pin downs. They're back cutting pressure. They're doing so many things well. You're seeing so many wrinkles. I thought Mark Pope was excellent out of timeouts last night when it come to what Kentucky's going to. And how about this? We didn't talk about this yet. I saw a triangle and 2 from a Kentucky basketball team. I begged their last head coach just to sit in a 2-3 zone at times.
There were a couple of people that said that in the chat. Thoughts on Pope going triangle and 2. Your text last night was so funny in real time. It's like, what is this real life right now?
Well, and it was the first possession that they did it was a quick possession for Mississippi State that if you weren't really locked into what was happening on the floor, you wouldn't have noticed it if you're just watching the flow of the game. But when you see it, one possession, they actually get a stop and then they turn it over and it leads to a 3 off the rebound. So like they were effective, and then they got crossed up on one where I think Otega wanted to switch and be the top man, and I think it might have been Lamont didn't switch it, or Kobe didn't switch it, something. But to know that they've got that in the bag, right? They're not the most efficient team defensively in KenPom, but what they are is they're willing to mix it up. They're willing to change. And if you're going to throw a triangle into it, teams, maybe it's just to disrupt some rhythm. If you're going to throw a 1-3-1 or a morphing zone like they did at Gonzaga and at other times this season, what I know is you might not be the most efficient team, right? You might not be the best defensive team, but a willingness to kind of mix it up and change might be the difference that you need. Instead of just doing the same thing over and over and over again and not being great at it, mix it up and you find a balance that maybe in one of those runs where you get 4 or 5 possessions, you flip the game. If you're going to be in a scoring war like you have been, that little stretch might be the difference. So seeing them do that, I just thought was really encouraging. But I don't know if in my life I've ever seen the Kentucky team play a triangle 2. And that when I saw it, and then the TV caught it like 2 possessions later. And I was like, please tell me I'm right here. And then they actually mentioned it. And I'm like, wow, like, yeah, I wasn't crazy. Like that was a triangle too. And Pope's over there, triangle, triangle, triangle. Just seeing them do it. But you're right. My text, what was it? They went to a triangle on 2 tonight. We begged Cal for a 2-3.
Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. This, I like this. No, not that one. Same guy, though. This one. We didn't need Kerr back, but TP is filling in just fine. 2 notes on that. Kerr was awesome last night. Steven got a up close and personal look at that with just like he was talking trash. He was fiery. He was like, he wasn't playing, but my goodness, he gave his Kerr Kriisa spunk, and it was so crucial. Like needing just that guy to be like, if the crowd is going to consume you, you have to have a response. And for him to be the cheerleader, like, let's go to war. Like he's the one guy that's like, I'll take care of it on the bench. You guys take care of it on the floor, but I got the momentum. I got the energy from right here. So Kerr Kriisa was awesome. He talked trash. He was, even in the handshake line was like throwing some jabs and like, he was feeling it pretty good. Love that. In his place, Travis Perry has emerged as a legitimate backup point guard. In that growth, where at times earlier this year, that dude looked like he was lost at sea, drowning, and no life preserver. Like at times it's just like, that guy can't play in the SEC. And for him to take those moments, learn from them, grow from them, clearly watch the film, clearly say, hey, we got to get this right defensively, like playing too fast, playing too slow, like knowing when to play aggressive. Like this is the leading scorer in the history of Kentucky high school basketball, and he's passing on shots. It's like, you were brought here to put the ball in the hoop. Do that. If you're going to be a turnstile on the defensive end, we got to have you making shots. Not only has he started to make shots, but he's also growing as a defender, and that is awesome. That stretch where he gets the offensive rebound, steps back into a like in rhythm shot was like, where the hell did this guy come from? And he bottoms it and looks competent, and like I liked, so he gets called for that, what should have been a hook. He gets called for that, and the camera catches him like laughing, like bad call, but like feeling the game, feeling the vibe of a like true road SEC game. He's not going, oh, yes, Mr. Referee, whatever you say. He's like throwing his own little energy and jabs and doing his own thing. Like he's emerging, he's growing. And that growth is, it's 6 minutes and it's 1 made 3 and it's 3 points and it's, 1 rebound. Did that decide the game? Did it change the game? We're not going to be hyperbolic about it, but the growth that he has shown in a, like, what do you do without Kerr Kriisa on the floor? Like, that's a guy who has been kind of the change of pace guy to really be, when we talk about a spark off the bench, Kerr Kriisa is that guy to a T. I mean, that's why he gets brought here. So to fill a really uncomfortable role that, you have no choice. He's the only guy capable of doing it. I really, really appreciate his response over the course of the season, just the growth from day one, because I don't think anybody has grown more within himself on the team than Travis Perry. And I think that he deserves his own pat on the back.
Those 6 minutes matter, right? Like when you're down a guy like Kerr, those 6 minutes can matter because it saves legs. Like if those 6 minutes are Lamont getting a breather or someone else in your backcourt, like those minutes, Ainsley's minutes, those minutes add up. They matter, especially in a deep league like what you're playing in this year. And if you hopefully get Kerr back, what you're doing in this moment is building confidence that if you need to stretch it a little further and go to Travis Perry, you feel comfortable doing it because he's built up that confidence and trust by giving him these moments in these key SEC games. Like, this is valuable experience, not just for Kentucky in this moment, but this program moving forward, that he is getting reps and in-game experience in really key moments for this team. And it was good to see him hit a couple of shots, the last few games and things, and actually, see the ball go through the net, because if you let him have 3 or 4 looks, he's capable of hitting all 4 of them. So when you got that type of guy playing some minutes for you, like, you trust it when it comes out of his hand. But I think that he's building trust with Mark Pope. I think he's building trust with his teammates. But the biggest thing is I think he's building trust with himself. And that confidence and knowing that he can contribute, Jack, is a big thing, especially when you're a guy down and you just never know what, bumps and bruises you're going to suffer throughout the league. Is there a game where Travis Perry's got to play 16, 17, 18, 19 minutes for you and it be on the road at Tennessee, or someone coming in here at Rupp this week that's a good team because they got two really good ones walking in? So just seeing another guy that's capable of getting minutes and contributing, I think it's a big thing for this team and for the rotation and Kentucky's depth.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to a special event. We're doing all those meet and greets at KS Bar. That is a part of this. You don't get that type of access anywhere else, and that's one of the perks of many of being a Club Blue subscriber. Special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today. A new bourbon that just came out. I am just cannot wait to try that out as well. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support. When you sign up, choose your sport and support with Club Blue. And also, there was great value out there for that Mississippi State game. If you believe in the Cats, and I'll just say that I picked the Cats to win. I know I picked Kentucky to win every game, but I had a feeling, if you watch the pregame walk and talk, I had Jackson Robinson as my MVP. So take that, haters. But if you believed in the Cats, you had really good value with our friends at Circus Sports Kentucky. Mississippi State was a 5.5 point favorite. I think it grew to like 6, closer to tip off. So if you believed you could have gotten an unbelievable value, there was an unbelievable slate of games on Saturday. We're going to keep that thing rolling. But the best time of the year is here, obviously. The SEC is at an all-time high, and the best app to bet college sports is Circus Sports Kentucky. It's sports betting the way it should be, with high and transparent betting limits, the lowest holds, and exceptional customer service. It doesn't matter when they take the court, whether it's spreads, props, futures, in-game, or in-game. Circus Sports is the place to bet on college basketball. Fun and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. Must be 18 or older for Kentucky gambling services. Call or text 1-800-426-2537. I like this. Michael Webb said, I heard another podcast say that they would rather have UK's offense than UT's defense. It made me smile. We also watched that on the drive back, listened to it on the drive back from Starkville, Stephen and I. And do you get like giddy hearing other people like have respect for your program and like have a love for what you're seeing through our eyes? Like, we get to enjoy it as fans, but there's something to be said about the respected national guys that kind of have to oversee the grand landscape of college basketball and talk about our coach the way that they talk about him. And like this, I would rather have UK's offense than UT's defense. That was a Field of 68 segment with talking about Kentucky. What do you make of the defensive woes and kind of the dropping analytics there? There's some concern like, hey, how do you have individual standouts defensively in a Lamont Butler, one of the best on-ball guards in college basketball, Otega Owe, clearly capable, guarding 94 feet, incredible in his own right, and then a 3-time conference player of the year in Amari Williams, defense player of the year in Amari Williams. Why are they not better defensively? And the response from John Fanta, I thought, was immaculate. He said, if you score 95 points against one of the best defenses in college basketball, the defensive guru, like Chris Jans, the dentist, like that's what he is known for, grinding teams down and just kind of just taking your will to live away because of the way he wants to just carve out tough, hard-fought wins. And then you went and dropped 95 points on them on their home floor in that environment. I liked that response. I did, because the question was like, hey, what happens if you don't score 70 points on any given night? And John Fanta was just kind of like, I'm going to take my odds. More, yeah. Have we seen the exception? We've seen it 3 times. But we've also seen more high quality wins than anybody else in the sport has seen right now. 4 top 12 wins in the net. Nobody has even come close to that. The next highest is 2. We've doubled the next best in college basketball. That deserves a massive tip of the cap.
It does. And I thought one of the better points that was made on that show, and I think it was like a 9-minute segment just talking about Kentucky's win, was we've seen this formula play out before in recent years where your top 3 or 4 in offensive efficiency and you're really low in defense efficiency, like in the hundreds or 99. You've seen Alabama last year as second best offense, I think a 111 in defensive efficiency, make a Final Four. The year before it was Miami, who was, if I'm not mistaken, I've got it here, 6th in offensive efficiency and 99th in defensive efficiency. Right now, Kentucky stands where, Jack? In KenPom. Kentucky is 3rd in offensive efficiency and 87th in adjusted defense.
I think they jumped up to 2 like for a couple of minutes last night offensively, and then settled back at 3.
But there are a couple of things that when you dive into it that I think could be daggers, but the Kentucky's kind of avoided. And I know they turned the ball over last night, and Mississippi State, the reason that the game didn't end comfortably for Kentucky is because Mississippi State did get 20 points off 13 turnovers. Kentucky's not turning teams over a ton. That is something I would like to see them start doing more, is can you start turning them over? But how about this? Kentucky is 19th in college basketball in 3-point percentage defense, in 3-point defense. Now, if this had been a team that's given up 36, 37, 38% from 3, you're probably losing some of these games that have come down to a possession or 2, right? So 28.4%. I've seen them now through a big chunk of this regular season, now halfway through it, not turn the ball over. They are 15th in the country in turnovers per game at 9.7. And obviously that number shot up last night when you turned over 13 times. Those 2 areas are very important because you're routinely not giving away possessions. If you're going to rebound the way that you did last night and you're not giving up a ton of second chance opportunities. Now, I know there were a couple of balls, like, to me, the momentum swing that kind of got Mississippi State back in the game, Jack, is the ball's hanging on the rim and it's hanging and you're up 14, and Brandon Garrison for some reason just doesn't go pursue it when it comes off with 2 hands. They get an offensive rebound there, they hit a 3. Then you miss 2 free throws. You come down, they hit a corner 3. Like those little things there where you just kind of go seize it and just go take the basketball like that. The ball bouncing and hanging, as soon as that thing comes off, that's yours. And you don't know what Kentucky's going to do with that ball up 14. Maybe they hit a 3 and go up 17, and then Mississippi State maybe taps out. You don't know in that moment. But the ability to show some resolve, I'm also not going to shy away from what I said last year. I'm taking offensive efficiency over defensive efficiency. You got to make shots to win in that tournament. And, Alabama getting to a Final Four with their formula a year ago. And when Alabama got there, I think we all thought they had a chance at that level of the season. If you get to that final weekend, you never know. But can Kentucky consistently rebound the basketball? Can it limit its turnovers? Can it maybe force a couple of turnovers in live ball situations? I'm still not completely out on their defensive effort because I do think that there's areas, and here's why. When you're going to mix in junk defenses, or you're going to mix in a morphing 1-3-1 or straight or 1-3-1 or 2-3, whatever Mark Pope decides to do, Jack, it gives me the confidence to know that if they're getting just gashed in man-to-man situations, there's a willingness to change that could disrupt the rhythm. And what you get is maybe 4 or 5 possessions where the other team's off balance, and maybe you, as an efficient offensive team, take advantage of that short spurt that then maybe propels you in a game where you're neck and neck or gets you back in one. That to me is the important thing about the defensive side of things. But I'm paying attention to the wins and losses. Not getting caught up in KenPom this year. I'm not doing it to myself. I'm paying attention to the win-loss margin in that area of SEC play. Is Kentucky beating good teams or not?
the road ahead is not getting any easier. You get rewarded. Congrats. You get a top 15 win on the road. Well done, Mark Pope. Here's to win number 200 in your career. Your reward is a top 10 team at home, followed by a top 5 team at home. We've kind of pods have become our thing, and talking about just the importance of not going 0-2. That in itself was huge. We get through our first full week of SEC play with securing a pod, okay. Didn't get the 2-0, but we didn't go 0-2. You survive and advance this one. This one is going to be a little bit more of a challenge, given how tough Texas A&M is, and just how they were able to respond. Wade Taylor being out, and how they've still been able to win tough games. I'm keeping my eye close on Wade Taylor's status. That's one that's going to be huge for Kentucky in that Tuesday night matchup, and then you get Alabama, Kentucky, top 10 matchup. We're almost guaranteed we're going to see next week. It doesn't get much better than that at Rupp Arena. So how do you take the win and the enjoyment, the reward that we get from the win in Starkville, and then turn that into a learning opportunity for, hey, we just proved we can win a tough SEC road win. Now let's respond and continue to take care of business at home.
Yeah, I mean, last year it was quad 1 wins, right? That's what I've been kind of known for the last couple of years. I think the show this year is going to be pods, like when you have those pods. But this one coming up, this whole stretch of play with A&M and Alabama, 2 teams that just played each other. They're both at home, right? Like it's a big week. You're coming off a road swing here where you split. If you can somehow pull out both of these this week in your building, and I said it a week ago, Rupp Arena matters more this year in this league than it ever has. And it mattered against Florida. Make that building matter. That's a midweek game with A&M, but then that game against Alabama, obviously on Saturday, I think you already know that the building's going to be juiced and full of it for that team coming in here. But this is a week that can, the comfort of your own building, if you find a way to do it, holy cow, you talk about putting yourself in a really good spot if you look up and you're 4-1 through this 5-game stretch that Kentucky's open league play. But it's all about not going 0-2, Jack. And there's going to be a home loss or two, I think, that possibly will happen. I think everybody's going to lose games at home this year. But how many can you steal on the road? Kentucky went and stole one. You just don't want to cancel them out. Like, I think Kentucky's going to have a good week. I think I'm more confident in the first one than I am the second one.
Understandably so. Yep.
But the building matters here, and I think that this is where the 6th man for Kentucky can be Rupp Arena, and that building is. I mean, who knows what individual things are going to happen in those games, but that building is going to matter a ton, and that should give Mark Pope and this team a lot of confidence coming home for 2 really key games in the league that can really put you in a great position if you get them both. But I'm just glad they're both at home this week.
The frustration with Georgia was because you have to steal the ones that you can get. Any chance that you can find your advantages in a league where the margins are just so razor thin, you can't really afford the slip ups. Like, you gotta take care of business where you can and just take the lumps when you have to. So that's what, you win a big one against Florida, respond with a stinker in Athens, and then steal one at Mississippi State. You're back in good graces in the league. You're back with the momentum and have a little bit of cushion. If you are somehow able to, as you said, get these 2 this week and then take care of business against Vanderbilt, and you have this 2-week period, because again, we don't have the midweek matchup next week. So it's these 2, and then we don't play again until Saturday. You have a whole week to prepare for that Vanderbilt matchup down in Nashville. Good Vanderbilt team, but kind of like Georgia, that's one that you need to go win. Then you kind of are playing with house money, where anything beyond that is icing on the cake for that next Tennessee. If you lose at Tennessee, then you lost at Tennessee, and Tennessee's an unbelievable team. That's a lump that you're comfortable taking, and if you're happy, you're able to steal that one, then you move yourself up in the top of the SEC pecking order. That is so hard to do when things are just so back and forth. The league is going to be just cannibalism, eating each other alive back and forth. If you're able to kind of build some momentum and stack wins and stack pod wins, then you're talking, can we be a top 2 seed in the SEC? Can we finish as a top 3, double bye team in the league? That's where you start really seeing the reward pay off of kind of taking some of these early stealing some of these early wins. So it's going to be tough to do. No guarantees whatsoever. More unlikely than likely that they are able to do that, but that's what we're doing this for. That's what makes this league and this year in particular so freaking awesome, to be able to have the opportunity to go play a top 10 matchup and then a top 5 matchup back to back in the SEC. That's what this is all about. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see how they respond to this adversity and what they do with success, how they handle success. Do they persevere through it, or do we kind of get some of the bad vibes back of, hey, we're back in the good graces. Let's keep, we're fine. I want to see that urgency. I love the start. I love the urgency down in Mississippi State. I want to see the complete 40 minutes every single time. That really, really good sign that we saw down in Starkville.
Yeah, it is. And this league, it'll chew you up. It'll spit you out. I mean, look at the starts, right, by some of these teams. And I know that Arkansas is 0-3. Texas has lost to A&M, Auburn, and Tennessee. There's an 0-3 start. You got Oklahoma started 0-3. I think those are probably the teams that you talk about the most that have started off, poorly. But those teams are also capable. You saw South Carolina yesterday push Auburn. You saw that same Texas team play a 5-point loss, with Auburn. If you're in the upper half of this thing, the longer it goes. How about credit to Ole Miss, getting out to a 3-0 start, and some big games coming up for them as well. But there's so many stretches here for these teams that the teams that have a 3-game losing streak, Jack, they've almost put themselves in no man's land here in the league, that I just don't know what you can do to really kind of claw out of those holes that you've kind of built. And I think that's where the separation is going to come into play. That Georgia team that Kentucky just lost to, out to a 2-1 start there in the league. But man, you talk about a stretch coming up with some really tough games for them. I mean, I know that they beat Kentucky, but we're talking about a Georgia team coming up here, Jack, that has in the next stretch of games Tennessee, Auburn, Arkansas, Florida for their next 4 games. Going to find a lot about that team as well. Are they a top 25 team that can sustain it? Do you avoid the negative end of this thing throughout the league from coast to coast? Because if you have I'm telling you, if you got 3-game losing streaks, there's no hope for you. This game coming up for Cal and Arkansas, and I know this is easy to compare and contrast Kentucky and Arkansas, it's going to get done for not just this year, but next year and however long he's there. But this game coming up against LSU, when both teams are kind of in the same spot, and it's on the road, how much do you have? Which one of you wants to start out 1-3? Because 1-3 weighs a lot differently than 0-4 in this league this year. Because Arkansas still got a lot of tough games on the back half of that thing too. It will devour you if you let it.
That's why the Georgia one got under my skin the way it did, because it's dude, you have no choice but to steal them when you can. You have to take what the schedule hands you. And man, the Florida and Texas in Mississippi State, to get those and it just that's such a massive relief, where you can only take 1/2 breath of relief, because it's the train is going to keep rolling. There was an Alabama writer that I follow and shared a screenshot of the back end of their schedule, and it just got me thinking. Steve and I were kind of talking about just kind of like the vibes going into the SEC tournament, the importance of the of the SEC tournament down in Nashville for each individual contender for that, and it just got me thinking, like, you know, when we're talking about potential, who could win that absolute gauntlet down in Nashville, who could do that. Look at what Alabama is going to face going into Nashville. February 22nd, Kentucky at home, Mississippi State at home February 25th, Tennessee on the road March 1st, Florida at home March 5th, and you wrap it up with Auburn on the road to wrap up the regular season. Like, the dude that I follow was like, "What the hell is this? Like, how? I mean, come on, bro! Like, we couldn't get, I mean, one gimme throw. I mean, for relatively speaking, but like, we couldn't get one LSU or South Carolina or Missouri. You know, one of those. I mean, that last five is just an absolute. And Missouri is playing well. Not the one right before Kentucky on the road at Missouri. The one before that, home against Auburn. But like, this league is ridiculous, and Alabama being among the best of the best in the league, they're going to be battle tested going into the SEC play, SEC tournament, one way or the other.
They are, and
we all
and
are. But
like, and I was giving credit to Ole Miss a moment ago for starting 3-0. Like, no win's a bad win in this league, but they have had a schedule here where they've had Georgia at home, on the road against an Arkansas team that we know struggles to score the ball, home against LSU. That's a favorable stretch to start the league. If you can play three teams like that and you're avoiding Kentucky, Auburn, some of these other teams at the top half. But now what you got is you got back-to-back road games if you're Ole Miss, on the road at Alabama, on the road at Mississippi State, and then you host A&M, and then you're back on the road at Missouri. Like, then you're going to find out. But they get 3 straight home games after that. Listen to who they are, though. Texas at home. Obviously, that's a game with Chris Beard there that's going to have some juice to it. And then you get Auburn and Kentucky, 3 straight home games. Yeah, they're at home, but look who you play walking in your building. So that's everybody's schedule, though. Like, that's everybody's league schedule when you go through it. And then you just get the end of the schedule for that Ole Miss team is you close with Auburn, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida. Hello. Have a good time with that. Because that's why I keep saying the biggest thing that we have to do is you got to be consistent in how you evaluate this. You can't get too caught up in the highs, and you can't get too low with the lows, because we've had both this week. We've had the Florida game last week where we're on here, you're feeling great, you're talking about it. Georgia, it would have been easy to kind of say and get into the negative side of things a ton. They bounce back and get a win against Mississippi State. If they have a stretch where they go 0-2, you can't overreact to anything, positive or negative, this season in this league. You just have to keep chipping away, and let's see where this team's at when the dust settles. I think that they have proven enough that, like I said last week, they deserve the criticism when they don't play well. They also deserve the trust to know that they're not going to play poorly consistently. Like, they've shown us enough against quality opponents, they're going to find a way to win. And I think that right there gives you confidence every single time you turn the TV on or you walk into the arena.
And I think that goes back to John Fanta's point about the offense versus defense. You know, I'd rather have Kentucky's offense than Tennessee's defense. Similar, like, we've built enough of a sample size. I mean, when you're 13-3, you start 13-3, and you are pretty sure we're still number 2 in scoring nationally. That would drop to number 3 with 89.2 points, but one of the best offenses, you know, number 3 in the analytics. When you show a pretty darn massive sample size of sustained success, yes, there have been individual offensive slip-ups, and it's easy to go, what about that? What happens when they shoot 18.2% from 3? And it's like, well, you lose the game. You know, yes, we shot 18, you know, made 4 threes in a game. Like, yeah, that's what happens. So, but when you have so many more unbelievable offensive performances, and not just with shooting and going nuclear from three, finding other ways to win, scoring, and like we said, the balance between who is scoring when, and having 6 guys now. I believe if Amari going into this game was averaging 9.9, if his number jumped up with this performance, and we have 6 players averaging in double figures, that's enough success to say, hey, I trust that it will figure itself out. I have a hard time believing it will the offensive efficiency will nosedive as we're already three games into SEC play. It's kind of hard to fathom what we've seen up to this point drastically changing to suggest that, as we talked about earlier in the show, the defensive disadvantages that we're seeing are going to somehow overtake the good stuff with offense.
No, they're actually getting more comfortable in their offense and flowing into it, and like I said, back cutting pressure. Like you've seen them go to that back cut to Lamont Butler now multiple times, like out of timeouts. Tony, out of timeouts, back cut pressure. Because if a team's on defense coming out of a timeout, they're going to be amped up on that possession, back cut pressure. And I think that this team's doing an excellent job flowing into its offense. I think they make excellent cuts. They sacrifice cuts they'll sacrifice themselves to get somebody else an open look with a cutter. Like, I trust what this team's doing offensively to continue doing it, to put themselves in position to win a lot of games, especially the games against really good opponents, because the jury's still out on Georgia, right? Like, was that more to do with Kentucky played into that loss? I know a lot of people want to talk about officiating. Was it kind of just, a double whammy there when it comes to what went wrong? Or are we going to look up here in 2 to 3 weeks and have a little bit more respect for Georgia that maybe we don't have right now? Like, that's what still remains to be seen. But I trust what this team's doing.
Yeah, I do too. And I, excited to see the challenge that we're going to see. Quick turnaround. These Saturday Tuesdays are going to come at us very quick. So it's very funny being here, coming back. It feels like we're still in Mississippi State mode, obviously trying to recover as quickly as possible, because you got to be fully prepared for Texas A&M and that new challenge, and then after that it's going to be a quick turnaround to get to Alabama. That's just the nature of the beast, and that's what we're here for. That you just got to ride the wave and know that, hey, this is that. We got to be built different in the SEC. If the team's going to take on this gauntlet, we got to too as fans and talking heads. So we're excited for it. This was an absolute blast. It's a lot more fun to drive home and be running on fumes and celebrate a big win when things are going well than, obviously the alternative. So appreciate all of you guys. This was an absolute blast. Great weekend. Way too long in Starkville, but I enjoyed myself. Steven, we had a good time. So thank you for everybody that tuned in and got to see all of our nonsense and shenanigans over the last couple of days. It's been a really wild weekend that we'll remember for a really long time.
Yeah, and pay attention to my Twitter feed too, because I'm going to put out some videos the next couple of days. I know we've not been doing that on here, but some of these actions that Kentucky's running, what I'm talking about, that they're getting more comfortable, Jack, like that page action they've been running to get looks. The back cut that Jackson Robinson got in the first half was page action, that they had overplayed it and he just back cuts pressure. Like, it's making those elite level reads that Kentucky's doing right now that I think that when they're cutting and they're making shots, very difficult to beat.
Hopefully that continues on Tuesday. Shawn, let's get out of here. Where can fans find your work? Right
there, _Coach S. Smith.
Find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus. Make sure you're subscribed, liked here. We're going to keep this thing rolling, so you want to be a part of it. Obviously, celebrating more and more as the big wins keep going. So make sure you're following along with us. We're having an absolute blast over here, and we will see you next time.